No, you're live for 5 minutes. Enjoy your chit
All
chat.
right. I'll go retweet it.
Yeah, let me.
Oh, yeah, I gotta do that.
You have that?
So no, seriously, no one except me has seen Hot Frosty because I think we need to address
I don't
that.
know what that is.
Wait a second, I need to see. Now I have to Google Hot Frosty. This is a meme that I somehow missed.
This is a Netflix movie that will change how you feel. Netflix is kind of going into Hallmark's bit where they're producing.
Oh yeah, this looks very
Oh wait, is that the one with
disposable.
Lacey Charvet, whatever her name is?
Yes, it
I'm
is.
kind of
Yes,
disturbed
it
by
is.
the
Oh,
fact that
Mackie,
Lacey
I did
Charvet-
watch that. It was good.
Yeah,
Lacey
it was
Charvet
good, right?
looks like a middle-aged mom now, which is really sort of freaking me out.
And she thaws out this kind of, we're not quite sure how mentally capable he is, snowman, and basically kind of eye rapes him the whole time. We kept wondering if it was going to kind of break into a porn movie. It never did, but there was always that tension there. And
He's a good-looking guy.
He's a ridiculously good-looking guy. I mean, unbelievably, just shredded. It's impossible to not objectify the young man. And in fairness, he shows up naked except for a scarf for the first 20 minutes of the movie.
This is Encino Man remake for Hallmark, basically. That's what this is.
Pretty much. They just kind of mash
with a Christmas bow tie on top of it.
With Frosty the Snowman and it's all that. His name is Jack, like Jack Frost. It's a wonderful 90 minutes of television. I have a lot of questions, but we'll leave those for another time.
I'm just still trying to get over the fact that the little girl on Party of Five is 42 now. That's weird.
Well, things move.
Slamming talent on that show, though. Jennifer Love Hewitt, the Nev Campbell, and now Lacey Charvet, the queen of Netflix Christmas. That's pretty good for an old show about kind of homeless kids in San Francisco.
Wow.
This has been Gen X with Jeff Mackey.
Yeah, there was also the holiday touchdown last night on the Hallmark Channel, which I have not seen. But speaking of the Target book, that one is about a football player and a pop star who fall in love. It's sort of the Law and Order of holiday movies, apparently. Ripped from the headlines.
Nice. Boy, that is a little on the nose, isn't it? That not a lot of shame coming out of that studio.
Yeah, not a coincidence there. So did anyone buy anything this weekend?
Oh my God, yes, I've been buying things continuously.
I made 12 Taylor Swift bracelets, so I went to Michael's and bought a bunch of beads. so I guess if that counts, Michael's was my one purchase this weekend. $140 of beads. Man, that you can spend some money on beads fast there.
Yeah.
Why were you doing this?
I was making Taylor Swift beads.
Because Nadine got me into it. But when I was out in Palo Alto for August, her friend had done it, and then she made me a bunch, and they put little funny inside jokes on it. And then we decided to start giving them to all our podcast guests. So I'm backfilling Jeff, did you get one yet? We haven't sent you.
Didn't, but I am really excited to. Now.
So you'll have. We'll send it. Send me your address, and I'll send it. Down to the beach.
I absolutely will.
So we're giving them a swag, one with the name of it on, and then one with something that's specific to it. But yeah, they're fun. They're hilarious because I didn't even realize how big Taylor Swift was. And it's funny, some girl came up to me on Thanksgiving night. She's like, "Are you a raver?" Because I have 4 of them on. And I was like, "No, I'm not." I was like, "What is this, 1995?" And apparently ravers wear them too. But yeah, the Taylor Swift bracelet phenomenon, great for Michaels.
I made 150 of them last summer, and at first I thought it was just 4. And then it actually turned out to be this really zen, relaxing thing.
I totally agree. And I'm ADD, so for me, it's like just not being on my phone and checking Twitter and Bloomberg. it's like, oh, I'm focused on making bracelets, and then people all really appreciate them. So I agree. I think there's something very calming and nice about
Something
it.
really relaxing.
Yeah,
I can send you some really hot Amazon links for beads if you want to skip Michael's next time.
This is some
Oh, is
honest to God
Amazon
season
someplace?
of giving magic. This is really beautiful, guys. I'm touched.
I might have to go check the Amazon out for some more cool bead ideas.
Yeah, not out there.
All right. All right. I think we'll get going. All right, guys. It is Monday, amazingly December 2nd. This year has flown by, and it's Cyber Monday at that. And we have our two local consumer analysts, Jeff Mackey and Berna Varche, here to discuss how Black Friday went, how Cyber Monday is going. Is every day Cyber Monday now? We're going to figure these things out. So let's start with Berna. Berna, you wrote a couple pieces on the Wall Street Beats website that were nice that I read this morning. Why don't you let the listeners kind of know your takeaways on what happened, and where you think it means for the consumer stocks, and who was the winners and losers?
Yeah. So, for context, I've been going to the same mall for, more years that I want to count, somewhere between 20 and 30 years. I've been going to the same mall on Black Friday. I don't go like in the middle of the night or anything like that, but I get there in the afternoon and I walk by the same stores every year. So it sort of gives me like an apples to apples comparison. And all this stuff is unscientific, it's qualitative. It's only one store in chains that have hundreds of stores, but I have found that on the margin it gives you a sense of what changes, and I do track the promotions from year to year, so that's sort of interesting when you see the cadence change of promotions. So I go to Garden State Plaza in Paramus, and I think the big takeaway for me was that for all the hype around the consumer being dead and the consumer being in such dire straits, I could tell it was a strong Christmas season. They could tell a couple of ways. One, there were 38 retailers last year that I wrote down what their promotions were, and 26 of them were promoting the exact same way, the same depth, which was generally around 30%. It wasn't a 40, 50, 60% off the store year. It was a 30% off the store year again. So 26 of the 38 had the same promotion. Seven of the 12 that were different had pulled back a little bit, and 5 out of 38 promoted a little deeper or a little wider. So generally similar to last year. I think that, we're coming off of an election cycle that was toxic and contentious. And part of it was talking about, what was going wrong in the country, even on the incumbent side. So we had a lot of negativity. I'm not going to deny that the bottom 50 to 60% of households have really taken a hit from inflation. And it doesn't matter that the rate of inflation has trailed off. Prices aren't reversing on most items except for gasoline. So people for whom things like their grocery budget are a large part of their income or their discretionary income beyond their rent and their healthcare, are still under pressure. But the mall does not make money off of the bottom 60% of households. It makes money off of the top 30 or 40% of households. And those households, while grumbling about the price of eggs and milk, those households are at work. Unemployment is 4.1%. And, no one's going to cancel Christmas unless they feel like they will be out of work next year. And clearly people don't feel that. I had to pay for valet parking at the mall for the first time in my life. It was so crowded. So if you look at the aggregate data out there, it says that traffic was down a lot to stores. And that's probably true in aggregate because we're getting whopping numbers on online sales. We're talking, I think it was like 14, 15% out of MasterCard. And it's Sensormatic that has this data of traffic down 8% on Black Friday and 4% for the week, because a lot of the promotions started early in the week or even a couple of weeks before Black Friday this time. So, putting it all together, I think it was a good Christmas. Promotions were not higher. Traffic, at a strong mall. I mean, we can talk about mall real estate, but the world has definitely divided into haves and have-nots. Now that traffic is down, traffic is sort of gelling around the very best locations with the best store mix, the best maintenance. But those sort of A-plus malls, whether indoor or outdoor, enclosed or not, are doing well. The also rans are feeling pain. And I think it's worth noting that the weather finally broke. I mean, unfortunately for me, I'm freezing on the East Coast, but I was wearing like a t-shirt with no jacket 2 weeks ago in New York, in the middle of November. And, I needed to like change out the light puffer to the heavy puffer yesterday. It is cold. It was in the 20s. And, thank God for the retailers, because if it had waited another 10 days, it would have been catastrophic for the discounts around coats, boots, warm weather accessories. But the weather broke just in time. There was a line outside of the North Face. It's back to normal East Coast weather. So that's sort of the background. Every year I name a winner and a loser. Last year it was clear that the winner was Uggs, because there was a line running out the door and there were no discounts and there were lots of sellouts. So it was less clear to me about who was the bang up winner this year. So I picked three. Being an Olympic year, I decided to go gold, silver, and bronze. So my gold winner was actually Abercrombie. And the reason that I went with Abercrombie is, Abercrombie was good last year. It was good this year. But where I saw the change was at Hollister was much better this year. Hollister promoted at 40 off the store last year, while Abercrombie was at 30 off. And this year, Hollister moved to 30 off instead of 40 off. It was at parity with Abercrombie. And its traffic was up notably to me, like, and the store was just ransacked by dinner time. Like, it had so much traffic and conversion that the store was a mess, which you kind of want to see by dinner time on Black Friday. The stores that looked amazing at dinner time, that there haven't been anyone shopping them. So Abercrombie just edged out Tapestry for me, who gets the silver. Tapestry is the parent of Coach, Kate Spade, and Stuart Weitzman. The reason that it didn't take the gold was, I think, Kate Spade, is still having trouble with traffic. They did pull back the breadth and depth of discounts a little bit in Kate Spade, but Kate Spade is still pretty promotional. But wow, what a difference I saw in Coach. I mean, unbelievable. Like, last year, most of the store was 25 off. This year it was like one small wall of product that I have a picture of in my piece that was at 30 off. So slightly deeper, but like a very small assortment at 30, and maybe a few items at 40, but like 3/4 of the store, 80% of the store was no promotion, and it was much more crowded. And it was also more crowded with a younger, more diverse group of customers, which was promising and interesting and different for Coach. So I'm not exactly sure what they've done, but because the product doesn't look that different to me, but like the marketing, this sort of pulling back on the number of outlets and the amount of discounting, it seems to finally be kicking in on them. And then my bronze goes to, yet again, Deckers. Uggs, again, the longest line in the mall. No discounting. The Taz and the Tasman slippers, which the outdoor indoor slippers that were so big last year, are just at the top of every teen, tween, and 20 somethings list again, and maybe a few Gen X's as well. They're pretty comfy. Anyway, the only reason that I didn't have Uggs sort of higher on my list is maybe just they're a victim of their own high expectations. I think they're going to have a great year. The one thing that's changed there is they are in stock on all the sizes, which I think actually bodes well for Q4. They're not going to miss sales this year, I think, like the way they did last year, where they sold out super early and couldn't fulfill orders in December. But then you kind of wonder, how does that set them up for next year? Because next year it'll be a tougher comp because they're going to be able to move more volume. This is year 2 of the trend. So I think they'll have a great quarter. It just is setting them up for a tougher time next year because maybe the fact that you can get them will make them a little bit less brand hot this year. And also, on Hoka, which is their other brand, no discounts seen at the mall. The only discount I've seen is there's a little bit of discounting around the Bondi 8 because their Bondi 9 version is launching in February. So maybe they're clearing out a bit of the Bondi 8s. But, just great news, all around for Deckers. On the downside, last year, sorry, Jeff, my loser last year was Peloton, which is a stock that I know that you love.
Fair enough.
Because last year they were promoting, between $250 to $500 off the equipment. And when I went to the store 3 times, I never saw a customer in the store, which, so that stock actually last year went down. Deckers, my winner, doubled in the last year. Peloton, my loser last year, went down 40% before then tripling. So it's sort of been a double. So the check was right, but the story has changed on Peloton because now it's about cutting costs and milking the customer base that they have for cash flow. So, that's just a good reminder that, revenue growth and strength of gross margin are 2 metrics that you can get from channel checks, but they may not be the only things that make a stock move. Valuation, cost cutting, new products on the horizon. These are all things that can sort of supersede revenue momentum or gross margin strength. So anyway, with that in context, my 3 losers, I guess, I'm giving just like Uggs was my bronze on the winner side, Peloton repeats as a bronze on my loser side, mostly because the discounts are up. They had $800 off equipment packages, and the same thing, not a single person in the store, which to me says, which means to me it tells me that the TAM is getting really exploited here. Like there aren't a lot of people who want home fitness equipment who don't have it to sell it to. That said, that doesn't mean the stock can't work because they should be closing that store in the Garden State Plaza. That's very expensive to maintain. It should not be there.
Yeah, right.
Because there are no customers for it and they're spending money on it. So it's a negative call out, but it just points out the opportunity on the cost side. My silver for loser is Capri Holdings. Subscribers who go look at the pictures in my note this morning will see that they were promoting bags at $99 in the front of the store in their full price store, which is not a brand elevation strategy. Like when you have Tory Burch promoting $350 at the front of the store, Coach promoting $400 in the front of the store, $99 is not it. I give them props for having the color of the year, which is burgundy, right up front, but the price integrity is not there. The traffic was not there. And frankly, there was all the action in the store was around the shoes, not the bags. So still a problem. And there were no customers at Versace. I mean, it's not a huge day for shopping luxury because luxury doesn't have any discounts. So, why fight the crowds to pay full price? But the fact that there was no one at Versace combined with what I was seeing at Kors, it's rough for Capri. I know the stock is down more than 50% after its deal with Coach broke, but buyers beware, in looking at the bargain basement for that stock. And then that brings me to my final, the gold medal that nobody wants to win, loser of the year in the mall for me was J. Crew, because the traffic was just not there at all. I mean, they promoted it 50 off last year and they promoted it 50 off this year, but it was slightly broader on the margin because they did not exclude cashmere this year, which in the past they have always done. They kept it to some years full price, and last year it was 20 off, but this year it was 50 off. So it did, and that's a big traffic driver for them. So while the depth of the promotions in the overall store wasn't worse, the breadth was worse. And, just, I mean, usually that store is crowded, and like I walked up to it and it's usually got some kind of wow merchandising in the front with like sparkles and holiday and something that even if you don't have a party, you want a party so that you could wear that outfit to the party. And it just had like, it looked dead. There was no shine, no sparkle, no nothing. It was rough, and Madewell was empty too. And Madewell has been, you know, the little engine that could for that company, and it just didn't seem to be it this year. And in a strong denim cycle. I mean, denim was a lot of what's selling because the silhouette has changed so much in the last year. I mean, the wide leg and the flared that nobody had in their closet has been huge for driving Gap and others for the last 6 to 9 months. But you know, now the barrel leg is coming on, and certainly no one has that in their closet. And I mean, Madewell should be, you know, making hay in the sun with that, and it just was dead. So that's not a public company anymore. That is an LBO that's probably 12 years in at this point, 13 years in. I don't know how they're ever going to exit. Good luck to the bondholders. I don't know what's going on there, but that is my turkey for Black Friday.
So, so I'm looking at the charts. Decker and Tapestry look like winners. They're literally sitting at the highs. And then Abercrombie actually has a nice chart if you want to enter. It's kind of consolidated and digested, and now it's kind of having a move. And so, of those three, you know, if you're buying, if I'm like, hey, which one are you buying today? Are you buying Abercrombie or are
I'm
you
most interested in Abercrombie, I think, because, you know, on a P basis, like Deckers, as I said, everything's going right. Everybody knows everything's going right at Deckers. It's 35p, it's all-time highs. That's not my kind of sock. You know, I'm sure there are other people who are comfortable with that kind of momentum play. That's not for me. I screwed up not buying it last year when it was already a momentum play. I mean, I could be wrong again this year, not chasing it, but it's just not, there's no margin of safety in it. And that's tough for me. I'm looking at both Tapestry and Abercrombie. Tapestry is at a 5-year high, but not an all-time high. And they're also going to be doing a big buyback. So that's interesting. But Abercrombie is definitely the one that's, you know, 20% off of its highs. And you know, the cheapest of the three, so it's the one that I gravitate towards, because if they have put up a good Q4 number, it's probably going to move back to the highs on that number. The only reason that I wasn't out trying to buy that one in the morning is I just need to, and maybe Jeff might have some color on this, but you know, with the whole tariff situation, I didn't know off the top of my head how much they source in China versus elsewhere in APAC, and that's something I need to get a handle around.
I think they have decent control. I bought Abercrombie last week, actually, off their number, because their number was just freaking ridiculous. I thought that report was just incredible. And we saw that stock weak for a few days afterwards, and it kind of didn't make sense. You know, the stock is way off its highs. And the big turn, as you pointed out, astutely and dead on, it is Hollister. You know, Abercrombie really was carried by the Abercrombie label for the bulk of this huge rally. This Phoenix-like rise from the ashes was really all about Abercrombie and the idea that Hollister could improve. Now that Hollister has improved, that's an incredible profit center for them, and it changes everything. It changes their entire margin outlook, because it's if you have kind of both cylinders working, they really feed off each other well. It's a nice combination of brands from kind of upper scale to more for the masses, and the margins are terrific on either side. I think Abercrombie's a huge buy here. Again, I love that it's been consolidating, and everyone loves to hate it still a little bit because it's kind of collapsed, and they take one look at the chart and it looks like the Christmas tree of death. But it's laid a base, and it's doing pretty well. We still see, on to your point on J. Crew, you know, the deep discounts, no matter what the newspaper says, that's not really bringing in the customers, right? If the customers were as negative and as just looking to kind of save any penny they can, then 50% discounts would work. Instead, what we saw was a lot of kind of mainstream stuff. We were talking offline. This was the fourth Black Friday of the month. Target started Black Friday promotions on the 8th of November. They've been going for a month straight, And you read the popular press, it sounds like it was a negative that we had positive sales on Black Friday, or that it wasn't as big as it possibly could have been. Holy crap, anything positive in a deflationary environment is an enormous W. And I think the consumers being selective, but they're always selective. There's been great traffic when you consider that online is now just shopping. And I put together a basket. You have consumer discretionary making an all-time high. People still don't like the stocks. You have a bunch of mall stocks that have just been on a heater for the last 3 months, kind of anticipating better earnings. And you have most of the retailers, ex-Target, that's just mall chains right there. That's AEO, A&F, Tapestry, Foot Locker, just a basket I made kind of representing basically mall chains who are all doing about 35% of their business online. So they don't give a shit where their sales come from. They're not measuring traffic. You know what they like to do? They like to sell stuff to people. And if they're agnostic about whether that's online or off, then that makes it great. You take some of the pressure off the store employees and you're still moving product. Those stocks have been on fire ahead of anybody believing in the consumer, and people still don't. I love that. I love that. I love that. I love the way consumer discretionary, as a basket that I didn't make myself, just because that's a little more unbiased, also breaking into new highs. And I'll tell you what else has changed. And that brings me to my trade for this week. And in the retail-ish space, the consumer-facing space, names like Chewy, names like Peloton. Why is Peloton up by 3x over the bottom? It's because they're not going to die. Chewy, you saw the same thing. You can point to these guys, and when they reported their second quarter, and they said, you know what? Pet is coming back. It's stabilized. We had the COVID run, and you see just Chewy ripped, it tripled, and it was going to be the only way people buy pet food ever again, and all the millennials were going to replace their kids with dogs. And then we went down 85, 86% to just basically last summer. And I remember on the conference call, Chewy came on and they said, our customer base is stabilized. Our memberships are fine. We're seeing customers that are come in. Is it the best customer ever? No, but our company's not going bankrupt. And at that point, you see 160% improvement in your EBITDA margin. That's all you need. These companies do plenty on the top line. It's just whether or not they're going to stay in business. And if you have a nice liquid company, man, there's a lot of room for upside surprises. And I think Chewy is a win. I like the idea as a trade just on the straight side. You know, the options are all jacked up. But I was just adding to that this morning before we came on because I frankly think they're going to report really good numbers. And there's been a lot of noise. Yeah, that roaring kitty bullshit going on before. He got out of the stock entirely. That's great. You know, I wish you the best, Keith. You go do your thing. You know, they had $300 or $500 million worth of stock dumped on it by insiders. Godspeed to them because they made a fortune. The stock's way off the lows, and I'm welcoming them leaving. So barring that kind of stuff, Wolf reports, you've been on them, Bernie, you've made a ton of money on them. That's another area where, you know what, you just need the consumer not getting worse. You just need things kind of stabilizing post-COVID. I like Peloton specifically because they have a bunch of shitty stores that there's no reason for them to be open on earth. They sell a bunch of apparel. I don't know why they sell apparel. I've been analyzing the company forever. I'm long the shares because they're advertising better, and the exact same thing happened to them. All of a sudden, they have cash flow. And that's all it takes. If everyone thinks they're going to die, just not dying is a huge upside surprise. You know what? I'm not dead. Well, that's a win. You know, it's better than expectations, and would have thought you'd have been dead by now. In fact, so, you know, that's a buy. That's kind of good enough. And they can close those stores. They can do a lot of different things, but they're advertising to boys. I think sales are going to be stronger than expected. It's going to be the biggest Christmas ever. Now, that's hyperbolic because it always is the biggest Christmas ever, and it's only going to be by a few percent. But you know what? The stores are alive. I like the energy level out there, and I think that the stores that are executing are going to win. So that makes me long gap. No one expects them to do anything. I like Chewy. I like Wolf going into the numbers. I kind of like everything, Ben. It's the season of giving. I'm here to give ideas.
Yeah, well, if people are here to take them. You know, it's funny that Chewy, we've talked about that. I got along the Chewy in the fall of 23. Which, by the way, can you believe that in October of 23, which is only a year and a month, we were at 4,200 S&P? Doesn't that seem at this point a lot lower? You know what I mean? Like
Terrifyingly so, absolutely.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, that's my point is that I don't, you know, you look at Q3 corporate profits just came in down year over year 0.3%, the government corporate profit data. So most of everything has been multiple expansion. But that Chewy, where's the multiple right now in EV to sales, Jeff? Because I remember it was like 0.6 or something when I bought it. It was just absolutely
I'm
low.
checking it out right now.
And I just think about like, where's that stock?
It's about 1 times now, maybe a smidge over.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
so what's the right multiple for that? Do you have more multiple expansion potential there, or is that a stock where you need to see profit growth? Or
you're going to see
sales
profit growth. You need to clean up the insider ownership, and you just need to see them continue to stabilize. It for me, it's going to be membership. For me, that's going to be where you drive your numbers, because it's really about how much it costs them to get someone on board. And they reduce churn, they keep their memberships going. That's going to be their lifeblood, and that's going to improve their margins. And so that's what I want to see there. And you can see more expansion as that goes. Again, you're moving from a growing concern to, or a dying concern, to a company that has a chance to sort of build a business, and you don't really know what stable revenue growth looks like for them. So in terms of your multiples, that's going to be more fluid, depending again on what their margins are like. They've got 190 basis point improvement on their margins last quarter. That's going to give them a nice little tailwind. I'm willing to pay more for that, as long as they can kind of prove that they can do it again. So I don't need a huge growth story. I just need, it's that 190 basis points, but I'm, I think, 5.8% margin. So, they can do a lot better without becoming Microsoft all of a sudden. And
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, a lot of this feels like a bit of, it's hard to tell if it's a true rotation, but a year ago, talking about companies like Chewy and Petco, or two that I've talked about here that are also kind of micro cappy and got to really low EV to sales, were Honest Company and Real. These companies with like EVs like sub 500 million at a point. Peloton goes in that. Like a year ago, there was so much to go on things like Nvidia and Meta and Lilly, and it was hard to get anyone to pay attention to these little stories, because it's like, why am I gonna go buy all these companies that are break even at best, with management teams that we're not sure are gonna stay or any good? They have no history of making money. Like, that's hard, whereas just buying Meta when it had gone from 100 to 400 and was heading to 500, was easy, right? And but now you're seeing that valuations are really stretched on the top 20 stocks, which is something that Ben's talked about a lot. And they're showing some signs of technical exhaustion. And, I wish Bakes was here to talk about that, because, he's better at that than me. But, getting new highs out of these stocks is getting harder, for sure.
And you've seen, and the rotation is wider in terms of, like, Play is another company we're talking about.
Right.
We've talked about Workshop, Cheesecake Factory, Texas Roadhouse, places you go to eat.
Brinker's had a monster run.
And people are going out to Wicked. The consumer's fine. The consumer's buying shit. It's just finding the right companies.
And I think about that move from 4,200 to 6,000 that we talked about. And, like Peloton's up a ton and Petco's up a ton and Chewy's up a ton, but they were down a ton first. So like, I'd have to look at the endpoints, but I have a feeling that these stocks are down, flat to down over the same period that the S&P did that. And so, I could see a universe where it's a real stock pickers market. And I'm not saying that like all those big stocks sell off, but that, getting more than 5 to 10% a year out of them becomes more difficult. And if you want to be getting, returns out of stocks that are multiples of where the market is, that you have to look for these idiosyncratic, weird little stories, be they in consumer, be they in healthcare, be they in maybe energy or industrials, like, not just consumer, but, these sort of small, very idiosyncratic situations where, there's a change happening on the margin line, primarily either because of cost cutting or because of hitting a new product.
And in a market of 10 baggers over the last 18 months, you're looking at something like a Peloton's making a 15-month high. 15 months ago, they were a company that was burning $100 million of cash every quarter. They had a zillion of those stores instead of just 1,000 of those stores. So still a little more meat on the bone, but it was much heavier then. They had a lot of kind of things in front of them. They had to extend their debt because they could have gone just bankrupt basically in 2026. They did all those things. It's a much better company now, and it's back to where it was 15 months ago. As you say, way the hell off the all-time highs, just like Chewy is, just like Woof is, just like all these are, Real is. All these companies have just been given up for dead. They're not dead anymore. So what's the appropriate multiple? Something in the not dead category, as opposed to the deep distressed 9 times next year's earnings type of basket.
And we got to see where margins land on a lot of these companies, because like somewhere, there was that euphoria of when the meme stocks were going, and like everybody, sort of the late stages of lockup when there were a lot of day traders in the market, so when the market kind of corrected from that in 2022, and it was like, I think it was 2022 when we had all the garbage IPOs, companies that weren't ready for prime time that went public. And then 2023 was like the reckoning. And so
no, 2021, 2022.
Yeah, 2021, 2022.
Right at 2022, the rug got pulled.
So when they all fell in 2022, they came into 2023 saying, oh, hope and revenues aren't enough. We need EBITDA, cash flow, and ultimately profits. And so everyone decided to pivot their strategies, probably late 2022, early 2023. And, you can change your strategy quickly, but it takes like a year. Anyone who's worked in an operating business knows that you can't just turn the ship that quickly, and strategic change takes time. And so, here we are sitting in late 2024, and I think that the strategies that shifted 6 quarters ago are starting to show up in some of these companies. So we may still be in the early and middle innings of the margin recovery for these companies that were pursuing a non-viable business model, but had to go search for one that was going to work.
Yeah, Dave & Buster's is a good example, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I'm just saying, it's just in contrast, just to put a button on what Bernard's saying. That doesn't mean that you buy all of them. We've just been able to be discerning between you get out of the Stitch Fixes, you get out of the rents, you get out of the companies that kind of didn't necessarily make sense before, and a lot of them didn't make the turn. But now you can see the difference, which brings us to Dave & Buster's, Ben, a company that actually kind of fixed itself up and is coming out with a little momentum, possibly.
Yeah, that's an interesting one that the three of us, have talked about for a while, since like 30, 31 bucks. And they have a turnaround story that you can look out and you're like, all right, well, this thing's at like 5 times EBITDA. If they can turn it around with the new management and the story, you can see $100 stock in the out years, right? So I just think that that's where you want to be looking, because there is like there's a macro story here of, if you think back to 22, you had the government sending money to people and you had 0% rates. And then we went from a $2.5 trillion deficit to 1.1, 1.2, and then the Fed jacked rates by 5%. Well, that was not great for the consumer, and it was obviously terrible for long duration. I think that there's a good case to be made that the next leg of this is lower rates, which is going to be able to unlock some of the housing market, which is literally in a state of depression. There's nothing going on, and there's $20 trillion plus locked up in people's homes that you could get HELOCs going again, you could get ARMs going again, you can get the sales. And Jeff will tell you that the furniture stores are starting to discount some of that, right? And so tariffs, while no one likes tariffs, it can be something that's dollar positive that allows us to cut rates domestically and is favoring, from a flow standpoint, consumer names. So you could have we were pretty much washed out. I think you would both agree, in July this year for consumer names. That was a wasteland of everybody could tell you everything that was wrong, and Nike's terrible. The goats of consumer were even hated, right? So when the goats are hated and all these other ones are hated, now it's like some money's re-entering and can see a scenario where, hey, maybe rates will go down and maybe that bottom half of the consumer that Berner's talking about might get some, a little bit of a break. Now, employment will be the wild card, but I think that this all kind of makes sense to me. Is it only takes a little bit of money out of the Meg 15, 10, whatever, to just go into, I mean, how many Dave and Buster's can you buy with a 1-day move in NVIDIA, right? Like a lot of them, you know what I'm saying? And Pelotons and these things.
Absolutely.
So I think just from a numbers standpoint, that's good to keep in mind that like these companies just kind of got left for dead, and everybody's so crowded at the stocks at the top, which are great companies, but like the multiples are insane. So if we just get some movement from the market cap on the top into some of these names, and then, you come to us at Wall Street Beats and Jeff and Berna can tell you which names to choose between. And I think that that's kind of where we're at for the go forward. Is it's not necessarily, hey, buy everything consumer, but there's some that are doing really well that maybe there will be somewhat of a tailwind behind them, And so anyway, you guys got anything else on Cyber Monday? Any good deals that you saw before we kick this off?
I will mention, if you haven't done your online shopping yet, another thing that I watch is these Rakuten deals, which is the cashback site. It's a Japanese company operating here, Rakuten, Rakuten. I think it's actually public in Japan, but they, you basically sign up on their site and you kind of activate their service when you're shopping online, and there are different cashback deals. So there are just a slew of companies at 20% cash back today and 15% cash back today.
Wow.
So if you're shopping online, you want your Rakuten on. Companies like Adidas, Crocs, I'm trying to remember all the ones like Saks Fifth Avenue. Most of them were 20. Look at those, some nice Ray-Bans.
These are cool
on Jeff.
But
it's a segue.
One interesting, cool thing that I sort of noticed on Rakuten, and I don't know what to make of it, but Macy's, Bloomingdale's, Saks, Neiman's, basically all the department stores were 15 or 20% off Rakuten, trying to, grab your business. And Nordstrom's was down at 2% and is not playing that game. They're much less promotional. I don't know if they're setting up for some kind of life as a private company where, they're not going to be playing the comp game and they're going to be playing the profit game. I don't know what to make of it, but Nordstrom is not
sad tromboned the living shit out of their earnings. They just want it. They beat the living crap out of what they reported, and then they just basically said, but that's probably the end for us, and things are probably going to get much worse from here. They're just Charlie Brown of retail. They can't help but being morose.
It's just interesting though that like they're not trying to buy the customer the way that Macy's, Saks, and Neiman's are. And
no, they're good. They're actually a good retailer. They actually create a lot of value during the holidays. I'm wearing the shades, Burn, not because I'm too cool, which I am, but that's coincidental. These are my Meta shades. I bought the Meta sunglasses for that do the AI stuff. We played with these all weekend. It's been a really long time since a product was just like, holy shit, that's really cool. I could see this being something I would use. I'm super into my Meta glasses. I've been watching things inside just so I can talk to the AI and have it tell me things and identify buildings and structures, and they're a little clunky. They're not the future, but you can see the future from here. They're easily the coolest AI product that I've seen, and the speakers are amazing. So yeah, that's what I've been buying. That was my Cyber Monday purchase.
Are those speakers better than the speakers that are in the Love Sack couches?
They are much better than the Love Sack couches. And what's nice is you don't have to put your head where your ass is to hear it as well as you do like on the Love Sack couches. You get to actually wear these on your face, and your ears are free, and the speakers are kind of mind-blowing. It's just a cool product. I'm not getting plugs from these guys, but I am long a little Meta stock, but I don't think I'm moving the needle. But love the shades, and it's really nice to just see this kind of area developing after so many kind of missteps with their ridiculous goggles that people are never going to wear.
Well, it's funny because 10 years ago, my girlfriend at the time was one of the early invitees to Google Glass. So that was the beginning of it. And I ended up getting sucked into buying a pair of those for the nice price of $1,500 for like 5 wears or something like that. And I'm just hoping I can find them as like an eBay like collector's item of like, hey, this was the beginning, like 2013. But yeah, they're starting to come around, I guess.
From Ray-Ban, which is actually a reasonable price for just Ray-Bans, and they come with a camera and their normal sunglasses. So it's 2 thumbs up from me anyway.
All right, guys. Well, look, Dave and Buster's just hit $40, so we're happy here. And go to the Rakuten. I just looked it up. This looks awesome. I've never done this before. Capri, or not Capri,
go shopping
Tapestry,
for Cyber Monday.
Deckers, Abercrombie is Berna's favorite. I like the chart. I can endorse that. Jeff's Basket. There's a lot of stuff out there. Enjoy the Cyber Monday. Buy some stuff. Be a good American.
Shopping.
Yeah. And I think we're going to call it there. All right, guys. Take care.
$40, baby. Dinner's on all of us.
That's pretty good.